Becoming a dungeon master is hard, and I'd say about 90% of new DMs make the same mistakes over and over again. I started DMing when I was about 10 years old, and trust me, I struggled a lot. So today, I'm going to show you the 3 worst mistakes new DMs make and the simple techniques I use to overcome them, so you can immediately start improving your games. By the end of this video, you will know how to make your players feel like their choices actually matter in your world, how to make critical moments in your story stick in your players' minds forever, and most importantly, how to make even simple encounters feel dynamic and fresh so your players never get bored. And to make sure that these techniques stick, we're going to redesign a classic goblin encounter together. Alright, let's do this. But first, let me ask you this. Have you ever watched a movie where the hero gets exactly what they need the moment that they need it? Yeah, those are not the best ones, right? There's no struggle, no meaningful impact. This is the consequence vacuum, the first deadly mistake that kills a lot of D&D games. It happens when player actions exist in a narrative bubble without creating any ripple effects in your world. See, our brains are wired to care about actions that visibly affect the world around us, not just ourselves. Without consequences, even the most epic victories feel empty. The solution is what I call consequence stacking, deliberately creating visible ripple effects for players' decisions that extend beyond the immediate narrative scene. Here's how it works with the goblin encounter I promised. The village elder points to the nearby hills. The goblins have been raiding our livestock for weeks. Please, end this threat for us. The players drag the goblins to their cave, defeat them in battle, and return victorious to claim their reward. In most games, this is where it ends. Quest complete, experience gained. Move on to the next adventure. But that's precisely what creates the consequence vacuum. With the technique I like to use, you introduce second-order effects. 2 sessions later, while the party is traveling through a different region, they discover the merchant they meet has heard about their goblin-slaying prowess. "They're heroes of Westdale, your drinks are on me tonight." Their reputation has spread, creating unexpected allies. However, they soon learn disturbing news. The goblin tribe they eliminated was actually keeping a more dangerous threat at bay. A young wyvern that has now moved into the territory and is threatening multiple villages. This is how you make your players obsessed with your world. You've demonstrated that 1. Their actions have both positive and negative consequences beyond the immediate moment. 2. The world remembers what they do, creating natural story threads without forced plotting. And 3. Their decisions feel genuinely significant through lasting visible impact. To implement consequence stacking in your own game, follow these 3 simple steps. 1. After each significant player decision, immediately note 1 positive and 1 negative ripple effect that could emerge later. 2. Introduce these consequences 1 to 3 sessions later in seemingly unrelated context. And 3. Create subtle connection points that observant players can discover, revealing the causal relationship to their earlier choices. Okay, great! We're getting better here. Maybe this already gives you ideas for your own game? What's 1 player action from your last session that could use a consequent cascade? Tell me in the comments. I'd love to know. But hang on, because unfortunately, the next mistake could kill even the best consequence stacking in the world. So, remember being a kid and having a teacher who spoke in the exact same monotone voice for everything? Well, at least I know I've been there. Even the most fascinating topics became so boring after a while. And this is the emotional flatline trap, the second mistake a lot of new DMs make. It happens when they describe everything with the same energy level, regardless of its importance to the story. The solution is what I call emotional contrast mapping, deliberately varying your emotional delivery to create memorable peaks and valleys throughout your session. Let's see how this transforms our goblin encounter. The DM with emotional flatline might narrate each room in the goblin cave with the same moderate energy. You enter a chamber with 3 goblins, they see you and attack. After defeating them, you find a chest with 20 gold pieces. Of course, I'm exaggerating a bit, just a bit though. But you get the point. Right? With emotional contrast mapping, you deliberately create a variation. You approach the cave entrance quietly. The low ceiling forces you to crouch as you enter the darkness. Your torchlight reveals crude drawings on the walls, stick figures of goblins celebrating around what appear to be dead humans. Here you could use a quieter, tenser tone, forcing players to lean in. And then, for the main encounter, as you round the corner, the cavern erupts into chaos. Dozens of goblins leap up from their sleeping mat, brandishing jagged weapons and shrieking battle cries that echo throughout the chamber. The largest goblin, wearing a necklace of human teeth, points directly at you and lets out a bone-chilling howl. This dramatic shift in energy creates an immediate emotional impact that players will remember long after the session ends, even if you're not a professional voice actor or comedian, which I'm certainly not, as we all saw just a second ago. To implement emotional contrast mapping in your own game, simply do this. 1. Before each session, identify 2 to 3 moments that should be emotional peaks, crucial revelations, major encounters, or dramatic decisions. 2. Intentionally create quieter, lower energy moments before and after these peaks to maximize contrast. And 3. Physically change your posture, voice volume, and speaking pace to signal these emotional shifts to your players. As I said, this technique works whether you're naturally theatrical or more reserved. Even simple binary contrast between a regular voice and important voice creates dramatically more memorable experiences. But making sure you master this might still not be enough, because the third mistake new DMs make is, it's probably the worst. So, have you ever played a video game where you keep unlocking new weapons that look different, but fundamentally do the same thing? Don't get me wrong, I love my WoW transmogs as much as the next guy, but as far as I'm concerned, the initial excitement of that new shiny sword quickly fades when I realize it's just another reskin with identical mechanics. This is the mechanical repetition trap, the third game killer we're focusing on today. It happens when different monsters and locations mask the reality that players are making the exact same decisions over and over and over again. Think about the typical dungeon. Combat, walk down hallway, combat, walk down hallway, find treasure, combat, boss fight. Despite different monsters or room descriptions, players are making the same type of decisions repeatedly. Fortunately, there's an easy fix. It is what I call decision type rotation, deliberately changing the categories of decisions players need to make throughout a session. Here's how it transforms our goblin encounter. In a standard approach, the goblin cave might feature 5 goblins in the entrance, 5 goblins in the sleeping quarters, fight the goblin leader at the end. With decision type rotation, the cave entrance presents a combat challenge with sentries that can be defeated through stealth or a direct confrontation. The second chamber features an environmental puzzle, a narrow ledge over a subterranean pool where careless movement might alert the goblins below. The third area requires social interaction. The players discover goblin children and non-combatants, forcing ethical decisions about how to proceed. And the final chamber presents a resource management challenge, where the goblin leader has trapped himself behind a collapsing passage, requiring players to use limited equipment or spells to reach him before he escapes. These aren't just different obstacles, they're different psychological experiences that engage various player skills and prevent the mental fatigue of repetition. To implement this in your own game, simply follow these 3 steps. 1. For each session, include at least 1 challenge from each category: combat, environmental, social, and resource management. 2. Order them to create natural contrast between consecutive challenges. And 3. Allow multiple solutions to each challenge that leverage different character abilities. This transforms even simple encounters into memorable experiences by engaging different parts of your players' brains throughout the session. So, now you have the antidotes to the 3 worst mistakes beginner DMs make, but there's still a critical element we need to address. These techniques help keep your game alive, but how do you get your players hooked in the first place? Here's the truth. Most DMs struggle to get players invested not because their ideas aren't good enough, but because they misunderstand what makes players care about a story to begin with. So click on this video next to discover why plot hooks are actually easier than you think, and I will show you how to fix this.